I mean, kids are connected 24/7, and they're often comparing themselves to unrealistic standards. And then the pandemic. The pandemic created massive disruptions in learning, also created isolation. So we have a problem that was boiling for years and decades, and nobody ever really talked about it. And then all of a sudden, you can't not pick up a newspaper, watch TV morning, noon, night, and not hear about student mental health. It is in crisis mode at this point.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. It's no secret that there is a mental health crisis among students, with anxiety and depression rates skyrocketing across all age groups. Well, today we're joined by Michael Maxin, a 20-year veteran of online marketing who's traded optimizing advertising for optimizing student well-being. Michael has developed a video platform for kindergarten through college students that helps students navigate mental health challenges while reducing stigma around seeking support. Michael's platform connects students with vital resources and works directly with governments to expand access to mental health solutions. His mission is clear: making mental health support more accessible, relatable, and effective for students at every educational level.
Michael, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Well, thank you. First off, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about what is a pretty big problem these days.
No doubt. And if we don't get a hold of it, it was just going to get worse, right?
Unfortunately, it is. Day by day.
Yes. Well, let's start sort of at the beginning for our listeners. We always like to ask these the initial question when we have a guest on. Your career has been 20 years in marketing, online marketing, and that sort of world. How did that evolve into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I've been in the internet business as long as anybody can say they've been in it. The first speech I ever gave was email versus the fax machine. That'll give you an idea how long I've been in the internet business. But really, I started my journey in patient education about 15 years ago when I created the first ever of its kind video-based platform of patient education materials for cardiology patients, people that had heart disease. That platform really started my forte into all of these platforms. Since then, I've done COPD, sleep apnea, orthopedics, amputation. But my journey into student mental health wasn't something I really planned. It came after meeting a group of pediatric oncologists, therapists, and counselors who were part of our first platform called pediatriccancerlibrary.com. So after meeting these doctors, one of them asked me if I would consider actually creating a mental health platform for young adults, and Green Ribbon Library was born. And what we realized shortly thereafter was I realized that schools were great at teaching math and teaching science, but they were not equipped at all to teach students how to deal with depression, with grief, with anxiety. And that gap is really what drove us to build Green Ribbon Library.
What a fantastic thought. And bullying, we can't obviously, all of that is, mixed in together as well. It's an epidemic, honestly, Michael. And we see it unfortunately on the news, on cable news networks 24/7. And so it is something, like Michael said, we've got to get our arms and heads wrapped around to be able to get our youth to a level of confidence and viability and just the self-confidence and self-esteem, I think, is that they really deserve. So we got several questions around this, and I would like to toss one at you. Like you mentioned, the physician said, "Hey, would you consider doing this?" And that was kind of where the idea sprung from. But how did you identify that video content specifically would resonate with those K through college students?
Yeah, great question. That goes back to my background, back to the Heart Library days. That was 15 years ago when video wasn't really popular, right? We realized that doctors, you've been to the doctor before. When you leave the doctor's office or the hospital, somebody hands you a brochure. Well, that's never going to get read. 9 times out of 10, that's hitting a trash can on your way out of the hospital or ends up lost in the paperwork. Video is just a much better way to connect and tell a story, specifically about any mental health conditions. But really, we hit the nail on the head with this one because students love video. You've got to talk to your audience in a format that they want, a format that they'll retain. And video just happened to be the perfect thing for students. And obviously what I've done for many, many years.
Yeah, we're seeing that trend over and over and over again. Been seeing it for a long time. I really applaud that you applied that to not just things that can be so superfluous like our social medias, but something that's so poignant and necessary, and not only the medical field, but I'm really interested in this, the reaching the psychological needs of our student bodies that, are supposed to be the embodiment of the future, right? They're supposed to be the ones excited about life, right? We're supposed to be the codgers that realize you're not going to conquer the world. They're supposed to be the ones that think they still can. And yet we see that no family is immune to it. Like everybody knows a niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter that suffers from these things like depression that are brought on from so many different facets of life that are getting slung at them these days.
Yeah, being a teen these days isn't easy. Right. There are so many more different pressures that are on a student now, social media and smartphones. I mean, kids are connected 24/7, and they're often comparing themselves to unrealistic standards.
Right.
Yeah. And then the pandemic created massive disruptions in learning, also created isolation. So we have a problem that was boiling for years and decades, and nobody ever really talked about it. Right? The pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden you can't not pick up a newspaper, watch TV morning, noon, night, and not hear about student mental health. It is in crisis mode at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, Michael, we've had a conversation behind the scenes about this, but I'd love for you to share with our audience, like what's happening in that world right now, because you're able to get that material into schools at the students' fingertips, and tell us what you're seeing that is resulting from getting that content into at the school level.
Yeah, you're right. So Green Ribbon Library is a collection of videos. There's actually 30 videos. We've separated into videos for students and separated into videos for parents and teachers and counselors. So there's actually 2 versions of our videos. The student videos, for lack of better words, are more entertaining. Same script, but more pictures, more video, actually a music soundtrack. Now, when we install this into a school district or a college or a university, whatever, a college or a school will get a privately labeled platform of all these videos. So the videos will look like it's theirs. It'll look like a school district website, right? And what we're seeing is this. Well, the biggest thing we've learned so far is this. Students are not running down the hallway saying, I need help, right? What they are doing is wanting answers to, why do I feel depressed? What is depression? Why do I feel stress? What is stress? So our videos give them hope, but they also give them a very medically accurate description of what those mental health illnesses are, right? We are very data rich. We report back to a school district how many videos were watched, what videos did they watch, what did they do after they watch a video. And the data we've collected after our first year is incredible, an incredible amount of data. And we're using that data to make the platform better.
Yeah. Can you give us some highlights?
Yeah, sure. So a really good example of how are we realizing what's happening in a school district in real time is this. We had a school district watch 100 students in that district watched 100 videos on self-harm all in 1 week. Now that was extremely unusual. Depression, stress, and anxiety are usually our top 3 videos. Something was going on at that school. We got that data. We informed the school district, hey, something might be going on. You have 100 or plus students that are watching a self-harm video. Sure enough, they had a rash of students cutting themselves in the bathroom, self-harm.
Wow.
Yep.
So that's really good evidence of how we can take real-time feedback from students and give it back to the school before something happens.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
I love that. I can tell you there was a Dr. Jordan Peterson out of Gainesville, Georgia. I think I got that name right. I hope I did. That specialized in that specific problem. And I talked to him on the phone one time. This has been 15 years back. And he said it not only is that self-harm an epidemic that we're dealing with, nationwide, but it also tends to be peer driven. So like it's like when it starts, it's almost like it attracts more people that might otherwise not have done things like that, and then they get caught into that loop. So how we view our peers and peer pressure is a real thing, even if it's not spoken, right? And it's assimilation, I guess, and you probably have much better explanations for what causes that phenomenon. But that's really fascinating that you can take that real-time data and help that student body, that organization, to attack that problem now rather than, worse, ignoring it, thinking it, well, not my kid, right, until it's too late.
Yeah, and you can't ignore signs like that, right? So here's the hard truth, right? Depression, self-harm, anxiety, stress, they're often the first step to the path of suicide.
Right.
Most suicides don't happen suddenly. They start with feelings of hopelessness or depression. They progress into things like self-harm. And when those feelings go untreated, they escalate. And that's why early detection, like what we provide, through the school districts, is critical.
Sure. Now, do you have to deal with a lot of bureaucracy with that? I mean, I hate to be the guy that's going to pull up the bad news about, especially like government schools versus private institutions. Like, are you finding it? No, actually, both private and our community schools, they're both open to this.
Yeah, look, school districts are like kids; they're all different. Right.
Yeah.
Every school district has its own idea of what's risky, what isn't risky, what do they show kids, what do they not show kids. And suicide happens to be a great example. We do have a suicide video education thing on our site. Some schools choose not to show that. Right. Mm-hmm. Our platform is a la carte. A school district does not have to show a video about suicide or self-harm if they don't want. Right. School districts are especially risk adverse. Right. Sure. They can't show anything that they think might actually cause a problem. My personal opinion is it helps to talk about almost everything. Mm-hmm. But hey, we live in that kind of world where, people still have some, serious ideas about what's going on in mental health and what to show or not to show. So we give people the option to do that.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything like the listeners? Somebody may say, "Oh man, I happen to be in my school, and I really want to research this." I know we'll get to how people can get in touch with you, but is that open?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you actually go to the greenribbonlibrary.com site, it is a description of the platform. You can watch example videos there. You can see how we work. We have a 2 or 3 minute video about how all of this works. And then, usually the way that it works, our best contact point actually in a school district is a school counselor. When we originally started this, we thought that school counselors were going to be against us and against what we're doing. But I'll make a very clear point. We're not here to replace school counselors and therapists. Even in my opinion, talking directly face-to-face with the school counselor or therapist is the best option. But here's the reality to that. A, kids hate it. They don't want to talk face-to-face. Very few of them do. And B, there aren't enough school counselors in this country to handle the problem.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, most school districts are way above the threshold of one counselor for every 250 or 500 students, right? That's how many school counselors you have or supposed to have. But schools can't meet that, right? There aren't enough school therapists and counselors to fill that in the United States. It's kind of like the nursing shortage that we have in this country. It's an
Yeah.
issue.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the ability to consume that information on the young adult or child's level sometimes can be a benign step in, right? In a world where they can access so much that they shouldn't be looking at all, and we have very little gates to be able to stop that. They at least, if they're having thoughts or something, it's one thing to say, "Hey, can I be excused? I'm going to the school counselor," right? And it's another thing to consume a video that might give them information and empower them to take that next step where otherwise they wouldn't do that for fear of embarrassment.
Yeah, look, I say this all the time, that kids just want the information.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that, and we've done some exit surveys with students in school district that show the kids just want the information, and oftentimes we're enough. And by that, I mean that a student comes in, watches the video about depression, watches a video about anxiety or stress or social media, and they just want that information. They just want to feel normal. They just want to know that what they're going through is what everybody else is feeling. Right. For those students that want more information in their video, we provide a help page on each one of our platforms where they can talk to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. They can connect with a school counselor or therapist. They can find a therapist in their area. But the reality of it is 90% of those students just want the information.
Yeah. But it's information that could stop that. It really is. And
yeah, sometimes that's enough. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's medically accurate information. All of the videos were scripted by our medical advisory team, which is made up of 2 pediatricians, 3 school psychologists, a therapist. And we've had a lot of input about what it is that we're putting out to the students. But this is the same exact information that a student would get if they walked in to see a counselor. Matter of fact, we have some school counselors and actual professional therapists that use our videos to open up the conversation. We start the mental health conversation.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I can't think of a more appropriate segue into something Michael and I would like to share with you today. We'd like to introduce you to Kindness Worldwide, something we are proud to help promote.
Yeah, following an act of kindness between 2 strangers on Good Friday morning, 2023, our good friend Kevin Smith founded Kindness Worldwide, a nonprofit organization with a vision to create a culture of kindness throughout the world.
This simple act has inspired a movement spreading to communities throughout the world by mobilizing individuals and organizations to promote and display kindness in genuine and creative ways.
To learn more about or even become a part of the movement like we are, visit kindnessworldwide.org.
Yeah. And I think even you would say, Michael, I see you're nodding, leaning into this. It's like if we had more kindness toward each other, we might not need some of these very, very important resources you provide.
Yeah, and for any of the viewers that are watching this, go watch that podcast. I watched it earlier today for the second time. Fantastic job. Kevin's a great guy. Kindness is king. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, that's my title, Kindness is King. And talking about those types of things, we got to start that at an earlier age. Right. When we built Green Ribbon Library, we started at the middle school level. Right. And those videos were great middle school all the way through college. We're now developing a more robust K-5 offering. And those videos are different. That's about hope, about being kind, about bullying, about being nice to your teachers and your brothers and sisters. But hey, mental health illness starts way too young. And people don't realize that. As early as age 2. You can start seeing depression and stress and anxiety in a child. And kindness is a great starting point.
I couldn't agree more. Well, it's because we don't have enough red mud between toes and bare feet. That's the real problem, right? I grew up in the South. You can tell by my voice, right? But I mean,
it's not a tough generation like we are. But with that said, a lot of these issues and the mental health problem, quite frankly, we might be to blame for a lot of that. We're the ones that created the technology. We're the ones that are giving cell phones to 11, 12-year-old kids.
Couldn't agree more.
Right? So that is an issue, but it is also our responsibility to deal with the aftermath of the things that we created. And that's what Green Ribbon Library does, right? It's to me, my company is bittersweet, right? It's a great solution to a terrible problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank God you're actually doing that, though, and we really applaud that, because you're right. Like, every generation. Tanya and I talk about this a lot, because in our business we deal with a lot of the backstory of what caused somebody to get into the industry that they're in, and we build brands based on that, right? Because this is all a part of our makeup. And so, in reviewing things like that, it is generational, right? We deal with the generations before us and what their understanding were at the time, and how they were dealing with life at the time, that affected how we were brought up, that then now affects how we bring up our children. And there's so many studies now about that. Parental alienation being a big problem, right? That when 20 years ago, there wasn't any studies for that. Now there's hundreds of thousands of those kind of things. And one of the interesting things that I have to point out here, to your point about those generations, we caused some problems, and now it really falls on our shoulders to help repair that, is like in parental alienation, if that happens to a child when they grow up, they are 86% of them do the same thing to their children. It's not like they say, I didn't like how I was treated, so I'm not going to do that to my child. It actually perpetuates the problem. And so I really applaud you, because I think that I know your medium is reaching the young kids, right, where they're at. Video content. I love the fact you're backing it up, because you can hand a phone to a 4-year-old and see how fast they can move through it, right? And so they can consume this information that they might not get otherwise. So
and for us, it's about consuming the right type of information.
Right.
When we first started this, we did a lot of research before we even built our first video. Kids were going to YouTube to learn about depression. Kids were going to TikTok for stress and anxiety. I can't think of really a worse place to do that.
Amen.
Exactly.
So by providing the right medically accurate information in a format where students will understand it and retain it and appreciate it, is going to be key to our success in the long run. We're going to stick with what we know while adjusting to the times. You may have seen all the ChatGPT stuff about mental health in the last couple of days or in the last couple of weeks. Students are going to AI for their depression and anxiety and stress. We'll never stop that. But what we do need to do is to make sure that we put some walls up. So we're looking into building an AI version or chatbot of ours. But believe me, we'll spend a lot of money and a lot of time making sure that thing is walled, right? And giving students good answers, and not answers that might lead them in the wrong direction, because that can't happen. Certainly won't happen with us.
Yeah.
Exactly. Amen.
Exactly.
I really, that's another thing that I applaud you for, is being like that front runner to that, because that's very important. Like the AI is completely misunderstood and highly dangerous.
It is. And the real thing is, again, this is about meeting students where they are. But you got to do it safely, you got to do it effectively, and you got to do it within constraints of medical accuracy too. I can't stress that enough.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, as we close out today, I'd love for you to share with the audience what you need, right? How can people learn more, number one? And number two, how can they help you perpetuate this awesome resource?
Yeah, so what we need is help. Look, I've never built any of these platforms on my own. I've always had great help, either from professional audience like we've done here at Green Ribbon Library, but we need communities, right? We need communities in schools and more parents to understand what our platform is and start those conversations with their kids. From purely a business standpoint, we're one of very few companies that's focused on student mental health. We're looking for all kinds of help. We're looking for the help from the communities and the teachers and the students, but we're also looking for investments, right? We're going to grow this business very big. We have some great ideas about creating student athlete modules, translating this into different languages, getting into the nooks and crannies of different audiences that are underserved and underrepresented. And that takes content that's specifically built for that audience, right? For that niche within mental health. So we need all kinds of help, but there are a lot of people out there willing to help us.
Yeah, that's so true.
Well, hopefully many of them are listening to this very podcast and will volunteer for that and get involved and do that research. You want to tell people what the best place to reach you and to find out more about Green Ribbon?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to greenribbonlibrary.com and see and hear a lot of the things that we talked about. We have a pretty big presence on LinkedIn for school districts and other professionals that want to contact us. And I do regular posts on there. Michael at Clinical Platform, which is the parent company of Green Ribbon Libraries, is always an easy way to get in touch with me. Look, I do this 24/7. I've got 2 boys of my own. I've seen this firsthand. I'm a baseball coach. I talk to students. So, we're here, but the best way to get a hold of us is greenribbonlibrary.com.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Michael, for what you're doing for our youth today and for taking your time to be with us here today. We really appreciate it and love your message.
Hey, thank you for what you guys do. I love the podcast. For everybody listening to this one, please go out and take a look at some of the other ones, like the kindness ones. You guys have a lot of great information, and I'm honored that you asked me to share my message with y'all.
No, thank you. Thank you. The pleasure's on this end.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.